You could spend years perfecting your appearance, your career, your entire life, but if you ignore these 6 rules, even the most confident man will start pulling away from you without you even realizing why. And here's the part that might sting. These rules have absolutely nothing to do with being more attractive, more successful, or more agreeable. They have everything to do with something most women have been taught to hide: your natural feminine power. I'm going to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable, but it's the truth. The women who get treated with deep respect, devotion, and complete commitment aren't necessarily the prettiest or the most accomplished. They're the ones who understand something about male psychology that most women completely miss. And once you get these 6 rules, you'll never have to wonder again why some women get chosen while others get forgotten. What if I told you that the reason men lose interest has nothing to do with what's wrong with you and everything to do with how you handle your strengths? That the very things you've been told make you high maintenance are actually what make you irresistible to the right man. Today, we're going to uncover 6 quiet but powerful rules that can completely shift how men see you, treat you, and value you. But here's the catch. These rules require you to do the opposite of what most dating advice tells you to do. Before we dive into the 6 rules, let's get something straight. Respect isn't something you earn by being perfect, agreeable, or by making a man's life easier. That's not respect, that's convenience. And men don't fall in love with convenient. They fall in love with women who challenge them to become better versions of themselves. Most women have been taught to believe that love comes from giving more, understanding more, putting up with more. But here's what years of work with thousands of women has taught me: the women who get the deepest love and commitment are the ones who know how to receive it without losing themselves in the process. Men are built to respect what feels valuable. And value isn't created by always being available. It's created by having standards, not impossible standards, not game-playing standards, but clear, steady standards that come from loving yourself, not from being scared. Think about the last relationship where you felt truly respected. I'm willing to bet it wasn't because you made yourself smaller or easier to deal with. It was because you showed up as your full self and didn't apologize for taking up space. The 6 rules we're about to explore aren't tricks. They're not about controlling men or playing hard to get. They're about going back to the version of yourself that knows her worth so deeply that others can't help but see it too. They're about remembering that the right man won't be scared by your power. He'll be inspired by it. So if you've been exhausted from trying to be everything to everyone, if you've been making yourself smaller to fit into relationships that feel too tight, this is your wake-up call. The woman you're becoming doesn't beg for respect. She naturally gets it. The fastest way to lose a man's respect is to ask for permission to have boundaries. When you say things like, "I hope this doesn't sound crazy, or "I don't want to be difficult, but I need," you're not setting a boundary. You're apologizing for having needs. Men don't respect women who negotiate their own standards. They respect women who live them. Here's what most women don't understand about how men think. Men are constantly testing, not on purpose, not to be mean, but naturally. They're testing to see if your standards are real or if they're just suggestions you'll drop when things get uncomfortable. When you start your boundaries with apologies or long explanations, you're telling him that your standards are up for discussion. And the moment a man feels that your boundaries can be moved, talked around, or reasoned away, he stops taking them seriously. A woman who truly respects herself doesn't ask if it's okay to expect loyalty. She simply expects it. She doesn't wonder if wanting consistency makes her demanding. She knows it makes her choosy. She doesn't question whether her standards are too high. She questions why she's talking to anyone who can't meet them. This doesn't mean being harsh or rigid. It means being clear. When you say, "I don't do casual," you don't follow it up with a 20-minute explanation about your past relationships and why you need security. You simply let the statement stand. The right man won't need you to explain why you want to be treated well. He'll be relieved to finally meet a woman who knows what she deserves. Because here's the secret. Deep down, men want to be with a woman they have to rise up to meet, not one they have to bend down to reach. Your standards aren't too much, your explanations are. Most women, when they sense distance or confusion, move closer. They ask more questions, start more conversations, try harder to connect. But here's what happens when you chase clarity. You push it further away. Men handle emotions differently than women. When a man is pulling back, it's rarely about you and almost always about him trying to figure something out in his head. But when you ace him for answers during that time, you turn his thinking process into pressure. And men don't make decisions under pressure. They run from it. Creating space doesn't mean disappearing or playing games. It means having the confidence to let things happen naturally instead of trying to control every moment of confusion. Think about it this way. When you chase clarity, you're basically saying, I don't trust you to figure this out on your own, and I don't trust myself to be okay while you do. That energy feels suffocating, even when it comes from love. But when you create space, you're saying something completely different. You're saying, I'm secure enough in myself to let you process whatever you need to process. And I trust that if you're meant to be here, you'll show up clearly. If not, I'll be fine either way. That kind of confidence is magnetic because it's rare. Most women panic at the first sign of distance and immediately move into fixing mode. But a high-value woman understands that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let someone find their way to you. Here's what happens when you create space instead of chasing. Men stop seeing you as needy and start seeing you as mysterious. They stop feeling pressured and start feeling curious. They stop running from your energy and start being drawn to it. Space creates desire. Chasing kills it. And a man will always have more respect for a woman who gives him room to choose her rather than one who leaves him no choice but to feel trapped. This is where most women lose themselves completely. They fall in love with who a man could become instead of dealing with who he actually is right now. They make excuses for being inconsistent. They wait for promises to become reality, and they invest in potential instead of what's actually happening. But here's the hard truth. A man's potential is not your project. His words are not his actions. And his inconsistency is not a phase, it's information. When you respond to potential instead of reality, you teach men that they don't actually have to change to keep you. You teach them that promises are enough, that good intentions matter more than following through, and that your love is available no matter what their effort looks like. Men respect women who deal in reality, not fantasy. When a man says he'll call and doesn't, a high-value woman doesn't make excuses for him or give him another chance for the 15th time. She simply notices that his actions don't match his words and responds to that. This doesn't mean being harsh or unforgiving. It means being honest about what you're actually experiencing versus what you're hoping to experience. The woman who gets respect is the one who says, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to respond to what you're doing. She doesn't argue about potential or try to convince someone to want her. She watches patterns and makes decisions based on those patterns. When you stop responding to potential and start responding to reality, something shifts. Men realize that their words alone aren't enough to keep you interested. They understand that if they want your energy, attention, and love, they have to earn it through steady action, not just good intentions. And here's the beautiful part. The right man won't be upset by this standard. He'll respect it because men know the difference between their words and their actions, even when they're hoping you don't notice. Most women are so afraid of being seen as difficult, demanding, or too much that they shrink themselves into something easy for everyone else to digest. But here's what that costs you: your authenticity, your power, and ultimately the respect you're trying so hard to earn. The moment you start editing yourself to be more likable, you stop being magnetic. Because attraction isn't about being perfect or easy to understand. It's about being real, complex, and totally yourself without apology. Men don't respect women they can figure out in 5 minutes. They respect women who have layers, depth, and the confidence to let those layers show naturally without explanation or apology. When you make peace with being misunderstood, you stop performing. You stop trying to prove your worth to people who are determined to undervalue you. You stop explaining your choices to people who wouldn't make them themselves. This is incredibly freeing because it means you can finally be yourself without constantly watching how others are receiving you. You can have opinions without needing everyone to agree with them. You can make decisions that serve you without needing everyone's approval. And here's what happens when you embrace being misunderstood. The right people understand you perfectly, and the wrong people remove themselves. It's like a natural filtering system that saves you years of trying to force connections with people who were never meant to get you anyway. Men are drawn to women who are comfortable in their own skin, even when that skin doesn't fit everyone's expectations. They're attracted to authenticity, not performance. And they respect women who would rather be genuinely disliked than fake loved. Making peace with being misunderstood doesn't mean being difficult or unreasonable. It means accepting that you're not for everyone. And that's exactly how it should be. Because the goal isn't to be chosen by everyone, it's to be chosen by the right one. Your gut feeling is not your enemy. It's not your insecurity talking or your past making you paranoid. It's your internal guidance system that picks up on things your logical mind hasn't processed yet. Most women have been trained to doubt their gut feelings, especially when they conflict with what a man is telling them. Society teaches us to be logical, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to not jump to conclusions. But your gut doesn't jump to conclusions. It connects dots that your thinking mind isn't ready to see yet. When something feels off, it usually is. When his behavior doesn't match his words, trust the behavior. When you feel like you're getting mixed signals, you probably are. And when every part of you is saying that something isn't right, listen to it. Men have deep respect for women who trust themselves. There's something incredibly attractive about a woman who doesn't need outside validation to know what she knows. She doesn't need him to admit he's being inconsistent. She can feel it. She doesn't need him to confess he's not ready for commitment. His actions tell her everything she needs to know. This kind of inner knowing is powerful because it can't be manipulated. A man can't gaslight a woman who trusts her own perceptions. He can't convince her that black is white when she can clearly see the difference. Trusting your gut doesn't mean becoming paranoid or assuming the worst about every situation. It means honoring the wisdom that comes from your body, your emotions, and your subconscious observations. It means understanding that your feelings are information, not obstacles to overcome. When you learn to trust your gut over someone else's words, you stop getting caught up in confusion. You stop making excuses for behavior that doesn't feel right. You start making decisions from a place of clarity instead of hope. And men notice this shift immediately. They realize they're dealing with a woman who can't be easily deceived or manipulated. A woman who knows herself so well that she doesn't need anyone else to tell her what's real. This is the rule that changes everything, and it's the one most women struggle with the most. Choosing yourself first doesn't mean being selfish or uncaring. It means understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't love someone well if you don't love yourself first. Most women have been taught to believe that love means sacrifice, that caring means putting everyone else's needs before your own, and that a good woman always chooses others over herself. But this is a recipe for resentment, exhaustion, and ultimately losing yourself completely. Men don't respect martyrs. They respect women who have a strong sense of self and the courage to protect it. They're attracted to women who have their own lives, their own goals, their own sources of happiness that don't depend on anyone else. When you consistently choose yourself first, you're not being mean or selfish. You're being responsible. You're taking care of the person you'll spend your entire life with, you, and you're showing others how you expect to be treated. Choosing yourself first means saying no to things that don't serve you, even when saying no is uncomfortable. It means putting your peace over other people's comfort. It means leaving situations that drain you, even when leaving is hard. This doesn't mean you don't care about others or that you can't be generous with your time and energy. It means you do these things from a place of fullness rather than emptiness, from choice rather than obligation. And here's what happens when you consistently choose yourself first. You become more attractive, not less. You become someone worth pursuing because you're not desperately available to everyone. You become someone worth committing to because you clearly value yourself. Men respect women who have standards for themselves, not just for others. They're drawn to women who have built a life they love, not women who are waiting for someone else to make their life worth living. Let me share what happens when women actually apply these 6 rules in their real lives. Because this isn't just theory, it's transformation in action. Take Jennifer. She had spent 3 years in an on and off relationship with someone who couldn't decide if he wanted to be with her. She kept explaining to him why they were good together, chasing conversations about their future, and making herself available whenever he showed interest. Then she learned these rules. Instead of explaining her worth, she started living it. Instead of chasing clarity about where things were going, she started paying attention to where things actually were. Instead of responding to his potential, she started responding to his actions. Within months, he was either all in or all out. No more confusion, no more mixed signals. Or consider Maria, who used to apologize for having standards and asking for what she needed. She would start every boundary with explanations and justifications, hoping to make her needs seem reasonable. When she stopped asking for validation for her standards and started simply living them, everything changed. The men who couldn't meet her standards naturally filtered themselves out. The men who could meet them stepped up immediately. She went from constantly negotiating her worth to simply embodying it. Then there's Rachel, who had always been the woman who tried to fix everyone else's emotional problems while ignoring her own needs. She thought love meant sacrifice, that caring meant putting herself last. When she started choosing herself first, she didn't become selfish, she became magnetic. She created a life she loved independent of any relationship. She pursued her goals, maintained her friendships, honored her values. And suddenly, she wasn't attracting men who needed fixing. She was attracting men who were already whole and looking for an equal partner. These transformations didn't happen overnight, but they happen consistently. Because when you change your internal standards, your external reality shifts to match them. Knowing these rules intellectually is one thing. Living them daily is what creates lasting change. So how do you integrate these principles into your everyday life, especially when emotions are high and old patterns feel comfortable? First, start each morning by reminding yourself of your worth, not because someone else validated it, but because it's simply true. You don't need to prove your value. You need to remember it. Write it down, say it out loud, let it sink into your bones. Second, practice pausing before reacting. When you feel the urge to explain yourself, chase clarity, or respond to potential instead of reality, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this action coming from my worth or from my wound? Let your worth guide your choices. Third, pay attention to your energy throughout the day. Are you giving it away freely to people who don't value it? Are you investing in situations that don't feel mutual? Your energy is precious. Guard it like the treasure it is. Fourth, check in with your gut feeling regularly. What is your body telling you? What are your emotions trying to communicate? Don't dismiss these signals as drama or insecurity. They're information. Fifth, make one choice every day that honors yourself. It doesn't have to be big or dramatic. It can be saying no to plans that don't excite you, speaking up about something that matters to you, or simply taking time for something that brings you joy. And finally, remember that living these rules isn't about being perfect. It's about being conscious. It's about making more choices from love for yourself rather than fear of losing someone else. The more you practice these principles, the more natural they become. And the more natural they become, the more your entire life shifts to reflect your worth. If you've made it this far, you already understand that this isn't about tricks or tactics. This is about transformation. This is about going back to the version of yourself that knows her worth so deeply that others can't help but see it too. The woman you're becoming doesn't beg for respect because she naturally commands it. She doesn't chase love because she's already whole. She doesn't shrink herself to fit into spaces too small for her spirit because she'd rather be alone than be less than who she is. These 6 rules aren't just about how men treat you, they're about how you treat yourself. And when that foundation is solid, everything else falls into place. You don't need to do more to deserve love. You don't need to be more agreeable, more understanding, or more accommodating. You need to be more yourself, fully, completely, powerfully yourself. The right man won't be threatened by